Oh, hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. So, it is that time once again for my monthly What Am I Reading Right Now video. This one is for May 2019, and I'm gonna do my best to rally for you guys, but I feel pretty terrible. Really hoping that I don't have mono. I don't think I do. I think I just have some really weird bug where I'm fevery and headachy and scratchy throated, but not like, and exhausted, but not like congested. I don't know. Like, it's a weird thing. Did some makeup playtime to try to cheer myself up. Marginally successful. But anyway, I'm gonna try to rally and talk to you guys about what I've been reading, because I've actually been reading a lot. We're about halfway through the month and I have already read 17 books, so I think I am well on the way to making this my highest volume reading month. Yeah, I've just been really in the mood to read. I've read a lot of like shorter or sort of like pulpier things, which, you know, kind of boosts my volume a little bit. And yeah, this is sort of the last month where I have a lot of things that I like have to read. I don't actually have that many arcs left, but just in terms of like planned readathon or whatever, this is kind of, I think, one of the last months this year where I have a lot kind of planned out on the docket. And I think seeing the finish line in terms of getting back to mood reading has been very motivating to me. So anyway, I've been enjoying what I've been reading so far for the most part. It is more of a mixed month than April. April was one of my all-time best reading months, but I'm still having a lot of highs. I just am also having some lows. So I'll kind of talk to you guys a little bit about some of the highlights of that. And then we'll talk about what I might read next. Sorry, I had to pause for my neighbor's dogs to bark. I have to tell you, I actually really like these dogs. They only bark when someone is coming or going. So like, makes me feel kind of secure. It also lets me know when the mailman gets here so I don't have anything stolen from my front porch if I'm here, because I can go out and get it right away. Anyway, side note. Okay, so things that I've read this month that I had more of a mixed response to. How about that? Some of these, only one of these would I say I really did not like. The one that like I did not like and DNF'd and is like the biggest DNF I've had so far this year is Space Opera. You will see more about this, I want to say next week. I've got my Goodreads friends pick my TBR vlog going up. So you'll see more about my thoughts there. So I'm mostly going to leave this alone. I'll just tell you, I got halfway through this and could not anymore. I'll try something else from Catherynne and Valente, because I've heard that her books are very much like a book-to-book basis in terms of if you're going to like it or not. So I'll try again. Did not like this one. One that I got an ARC for, but also had pre-ordered, so I have the E version and this version, so I'll unhaul this copy, is Ragged Alice, and this ended up being kind of a disappointment. I think I talked about this in my London vlog. So many vlogs happening right now, guys. But I talked about this. It wasn't bad. It was just like should have either been longer, shorter, or been more surprising in the conclusion. As it is, it's just sort of like an awkward length, and there's too much for it to be a good novella, not enough for it to be a good short novel, and it's just sort of like weirdly in the middle. So I think I gave this 2.5 stars. It wasn't terrible, and I would actually try more from this author, but this one, not so much. This is a book that I need to sit with, so I'll talk to you guys more about this at the end of the month. You probably are laughing because in last month's What I'm Reading Right Now is like, I have definitively said I'm not going to worry about reading this right now because I don't think I'm getting the second one as an ARC. Like literally the next day, that second book showed up at my doorstep as an ARC. So I have that one, and I will continue in the series. I gave this a 2.5 star. I need to figure out how to talk about this. I haven't totally landed. Kind of the beginnings of my thoughts on this are, I really like the world, and I like quite a bit of the plot. There's a lot of like political intrigue, which I quite like in a fantasy book. I think the characters I'm not sold on, and then the writing versus the content is tricky for me in this, because I think it is written like a middle grade, but has definitely YA themes. So I don't know. I need to sit with this more, but like, it was kind of a surprise / disappointment, and once I've had time to think about it a little bit more, I'll talk to you guys more about it. And then I guess maybe one other like semi-disappointment would be Salvation and Death. It wasn't bad. I think I gave it 3 or 3.5 stars. It was the next in-depth book I needed to read. Good, not great, kind of uneven. I don't know, it just didn't fully connect with me. Not one of the better ones, but you know, that's part of serialized fiction, I think, is that you kind of take the good with the bad. Last month I had like a 4.5 star book in that series, which was Promises in Death, and this one was more like 3 to 3.5 stars. So, you know, it just varies, and that one wasn't one of the better ones. Then talking about some things that I did like better, so I finally made my way through Educated by Tara Westover. This was a tough book, man. This was hard for me to get through just because it was quite brutal. And I gave it a 4 star. I really liked it. I think it would just really, I don't know. I really respect this in terms of like the project of it, because I think that this is a memoir about, I think what could probably be fairly characterized as an abusive childhood, where the author as an adult can look back on her childhood experiences and have a lot of empathy for everyone involved, including her childhood self. So what that does is that it lets her, and especially because I looked up some interviews with her afterwards talking about her family, and that was my impression from the book, but seeing her interviewed really cemented this for me. I think that she understands that there is like this continuum of how we respond to people who have wronged us. So there's like this tension between forgiveness and being able to have a relationship, love and being able to have a relationship, intention, parental intention versus the outcome from those intentions. And just, I think that she really, I think, sits kind of in those tensions in this book. Like, I think she really understands that those are continuums, understands that there's not like necessarily all good or all bad in the situations she's describing, and really I think understands that her parents did not raise them in a way that was meant to harm them, but the reality is that their choices did put them in physical and like, I would say emotional and spiritual harm's way, and like she has to kind of figure out how to deal with those tensions. So I really appreciate the level of nuance in this memoir. And yeah, actually, that kind of reminds me, I also read All You Can Ever Know by Nicole Chung this month. Similar to Educated, I would say that that is also a book that really sits with that kind of tension between how do you, like when you love someone, in that case, her adoptive parents, who did not always make the best decisions, and kind of talking to her about her transracial adoptive history and kind of cultural context. When you love someone though, you don't necessarily have to always, like, you can't apply cancel culture to people you love. Maybe that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. I think both of these memoirs are sort of exploring that of like, what does it really look like to sit with the fact that people can really hurt you, and you can like need to forgive that and like need to have reconciliation about that in order to move on in a certain way. But that doesn't negate the fact that you love those people. And it also doesn't necessarily mean that somebody intended to harm you. And I think just sort of sorting through that was really thoughtfully handled. And just to be clear, though, I'm not trying to imply that forgiveness, reconciliation, relationship, etc. is always desired or deserved. That is completely up to the individual and really on a case-by-case basis. One thing I think that's cool about these is that it shows in both of these memoirs situations where forgiveness and or reconciliation were possible and other situations where they weren't. So just to clarify, I'm not saying that's always what needs to happen, but what I liked about these memoirs was that I think we often kind of instinctually want to go to kind of a cancel culture type place, and I think that these memoirs are exploring that it's more complicated when it's your actual family or actual people that you love, that it's not so easy to just completely cancel someone, and some people can get to a place with some individuals where they can have reconciliation, or at least, you know, a place of inner peace about kind of what went down in those relationships. Okay, back to the past. So anyway, I really enjoyed both of those. I think this in particular really hit me hard just because I think there's some parallels, albeit nowhere near as extreme in her story and sort of some of my background in terms of things that happened in my family and also my religious upbringing. So, and I definitely could connect with her in terms of like having this innate sense that like education was sort of the way through. For me, ending up, you know, going to grad school and studying religion was really liberating for me and something I really needed to do for my own mental and spiritual well-being. And I think for her, pursuing education in an even broader sense was very important to her. So I really connected with this a lot and appreciated what a nuanced voice it had. Shifting gears away from the serious into the lighter fare, Wolf Rain is my best book that I've read so far this month. I gave that 4.5 stars. It is the next installment in the Side Changeling series. And actually in my April version of this video, I was sort of mulling on, I'm not sure, because I'd read Ocean Light. I was like, is this series like losing steam in terms of like her ability to have compelling microplots? And this book was a resounding like, no, it is not. I think some of it is that she kind of went back to her bread and butter in terms of like some of the communities that she was dealing with or talking about, which I think was good. And I think it kind of picked up some underlying thematic content that is really some of the bread and butter of the series in terms of using, having different sort of like paranormal species or creatures in an urban fantasy setting to explore kind of themes around like nationalism and race. And I think that she does that in a really, like, she uses the fantasy setting to weave those metaphors in a really enjoyable, satisfying way, at least for this reader. I just always love those books. Even the ones that I give lower ratings to, I still have a good time while I'm reading them. And this one was like, I'm having a great time. I really appreciate where this is going in terms of macro plot. I also really appreciate just like the micro plot of like these two people falling in love, like, and dealing with the fallout of a pretty horrifying abduction situation. So anyway, it was just really good, very satisfying. So that was a urban fantasy that I really enjoyed. I read my first contemporary Alyssa Cole that I really enjoyed called Can't Escape Love, which was a novella. Just like cute, adorable, fun. And I'd been kind of like trepidatious about finally diving into Alyssa Cole contemporaries and into that Reluctant Royal series in particular, just because I was like, I like her historicals so much. What if I don't like her contemporaries as much? But it was very, very good. So I'm looking forward to getting into that series. And then like I went down this rabbit hole of sci-fi romance. I just really got in the mood for it. And it's not a subgenre that I've read a lot of, but I ended up finding so basically there was this one that was on sale, or I think it was maybe even free. I think it was called Have Tail Will Travel by Nancey Cummings. I'll put the cover here so you can appreciate how I saw this cover and was basically like, this looks like such trashy fun. I'm in. And I was just like, I am in the mood for some sci-fi romance. So I went down the rabbit hole. I've been reading a lot of Ruby Dixon on Kindle Unlimited. Her longer books are a little hit or miss for me, but I've actually been really enjoying some of the novellas from her. And yeah, just like I haven't, like I said, I've not read a lot of sci-fi romance, but I don't know why. Like I should read, because it has a lot of the same things that I like. For instance, like a fantasy or paranormal type romance in terms of like different species sometimes getting together, or like the metaphors of those romances often are basically kind of like the same themes that you get at in interracial romances. And I really like interracial romance. So anyway, I've been enjoying just some like light, trashy fun. So that's been some of what I've been reading as well. And then a couple of things that I picked up and haven't finished yet, but have started. I started Sleep by C.L. Taylor. This is a everybody's trapped in an inn and people start dying kind of mystery. Read the first like 50 pages. Not obsessed, but also like intrigued. I don't know. I mean, it's too early to tell basically, but it didn't like hook me in fully, but like, I think this is going to be pretty good. So I started that. I'm also almost done with my arc of Starcross by Mindy Drake, I believe is her name. And I think when you're seeing this video, it should be coming out tomorrow. One that I like, but don't love. It's basically about, it's kind of hard to describe. It's contemporary. It's sold as a romance. It doesn't really give me a lot of romance vibes, but I see why people talk about it that way. The writing is quite nice, but it's all based on sort of like an astrology theme, which is what kind of drew me to it. I thought that would be cool. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to end up giving it like 3.5 stars. Good, not great, but like read the back and see if you think it sounds interesting. It's definitely quite well written, I think, for the type of book it is. And yeah. It's perfectly fine, not super memorable, but it's okay. Okay, so then in terms of what I'm going to read next, so let's see, what do I really have to read this month? Or have to? All of this is relative. Things that I would like to read this month that are like on the plan. First is another In Death book. I think the next one is Kindred and Death that I need to read. Yes, that is the next one. So my kind of rule of thumb this year is in months that have 31 days, I'm trying to read 2 in-depth books, and in other months I'm just reading 1. So that's my kind of thought there. So I've got that. I also have a few books that I want to read for Asian Readathon. So my original TBR I think had 11 things on it. I think at this point that's probably a little optimistic, but I do have, I think I'd like to read the 4 physical books I have left on that TBR at a minimum. And those are Courtney Milan's The Suffragette Scandal, The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu. I've been reading a lot of sci-fi romance, so I'm hoping I can translate that mojo into just sci-fi. Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. Definitely want to get this because I bought this for this readathon, and it's also a classic, so keep meaning to get to that. And then the last one would be The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro. Now, that transitions us into my TBR jar of like what I'm going to read next, because this is in the jar. So I already know I'm going to read this. I'm going to pick another one just as like, in case I happen to get to it. I did not end up reading year 1 on the airplane the way that I thought I would from last month when I picked it, because I forgot to download it. So it ended up not getting read. But I did read A Winter's Promise, like we were talking about, which was also in this jar. So I did read a TBR jar pick, just didn't read the one I picked. So I know I'm going to do this. I'm going to pick a few just of like, if I get time or if any of these end up sounding good, just in case, maybe. So first we got Born Again Bodies by R. Marie Griffin. Then Difficult Women by Roxane Gay. This one is tantalizing because this is, I'm almost certain, going to be a 5-star book for me. So kind of, I feel like it's an ace up my sleeve, and I kind of want to figure out when I want to deploy it. But there's that one as an option. And then another possible one would be The Diviners by Libba. Okay. So I'll kind of keep these in the back of my mind if I'm in a mood reading kind of day, that one of those might be a good pick. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I've already got at least one that I'm going to be reading, so I feel like I'm making progress on my, I should just remind you guys, this jar is filled with books that were on my 19 books I want to read in 2019, and I'm using the jar as sort of like a reminder to keep making progress on that list. So I definitely will be making progress this month, so even if I don't get to one of those other 3, still doing pretty good. Okay, and then if I get my act together and end up being able to do a little bit more reading, we'll see. Other things that are on my radar would be 2 other arcs that I have right now that I would like to read this month. One is The Last House Guest by Miranda Chase. I don't remember, you're looking at the cover, so I'd like to read that. That's sort of like a thrillery thing in a small community. And then The Dragon Republic. Now that one isn't out until August, and it is the follow-up to The Poppy War, which I really enjoyed earlier this year, but I put it as a part of my Asian Readathon TBR, and it's an arc. Always looking to make progress on my arcs. So yeah, we'll see if I can get to those. And then we'll just kind of see what else happens. I got in a real Miss Marple mood this month, so I've already reread 3 Miss Marples. I reread The Mirror Cracked, The Caribbean Mystery, and at Bertrand's Hotel. So I really got in the mood for Marple. So maybe, I think the next one is Nemesis. That sounds right. I think the next one's Nemesis. So I might get in the mood to reread that. I don't really have any of these that are audio picks right now, so I don't know, maybe I'll get into my audio TBR and see if any of those sound good. Yeah, I don't know, stay tuned. Like I said, I've already read a lot this month, so if I stay in the mood to do that, who knows what could happen. I would actually, to be totally honest, and sorry I didn't mention, I gave up on the TBR cart. It didn't quite work for what I needed it for. It wasn't practical, so I got like a tree bookshelf style thing for here in my bedroom. But there's a number of like mysteries that I picked up while I was in England that I would like to read. So like Sleep was one of them. An English Murder is another one that sounds really good to me that I possibly might want to get to. So I might kind of fill in with some mysterious reading. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers what I'm reading right now. This month is going pretty well, all things considered, in terms of reading, definitely in terms of volume and also quality. I as much as I like having a month where I read a lot of things that I love, which was last month, I also do like months where I have more variability because, that's sort of like, I feel like if I never have books I don't like, that means I'm not taking enough risks in terms of what I'm picking because, I like to have books where I have a strong response. I think part of why the first 3 months of this year haven't felt as good to me as the last couple of months have in terms of reading is that I was reading a lot of things that were like fine to really good, but I wasn't reading anything like great for the most part, nor was I reading many things that were like bad. And I don't know, like I kind of like that I'm back into reading things that are a little bit more hit or miss, because I don't know, it just sort of like keeps me on my toes a little bit. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but I'm feeling better about my reading in April and May than I have been previously, so that is nice. Anyway, you can let me know how your reading is going so far in May, if you've read anything awesome or terrible. Let me know if any of the books I mentioned sound intriguing to you. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that that will do it. I'm gonna go take a nap probably. I hope you're having a really great day, and I will just talk to you soon.